Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again here to my channel. We're doing something different today. I know that my channel is beer related, but we're going to be doing some pierogi making. Pierogis, this traditional dish that we've had on Christmas Eve every year, as long as I can remember as a child. We've always gotten together. We'd had a meatless Christmas Eve. We'd done the fish, the traditional dinner. One of the things that happened a couple years ago was I was in charge of getting pierogis. Well, we were supposed to order from a church down in Pittsburgh, and somebody didn't do that. And by the time I tried to do it, well, it was too far past. So under not wanting to disappoint everybody come Christmas Eve, I snuck into my mom's recipe book, took my grandmother's recipe, and started making pierogis. That Christmas Eve, that came to light that those pierogis were made by me and not by a church, and it's something that we just started. So in the past couple years, it's been my mom. Some other people have come to learn. Given COVID this year, it's just going to be me and my girlfriend. So something we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing some pierogis today. I'm going to go through what ingredients I use, why I do certain things, how much of what I use, and I'm not really going to give you measurements because, well, we kind of go by taste around here. Much like certain beers, if someone says, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that," you got to have just this amount. Well, it depends on what you want. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to cover some of the things that I use, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're gonna go over our ingredient list here real quick. I'll go over a couple things I like. First, we'll go into the potatoes, which is the filling. This is going to be a cheese and potato and onion pierogi. So this is more traditional. I know there's all different sorts of fillings that you can do with them, but I use a golden potato. I find it's a little bit softer, a little bit easier to mix up, and it blends a little bit better. I do use Cooper Sharp cheddar. This sharp cheese gives a better flavor. I'm using a little bit of pepper jack to it to give it a little bit of spice. Salted butter, we'll need this for both in the potatoes and for the pierogis afterwards. One of the things we do is we do make an onion and butter mixture. And as we throw each dozen into the bag, we will put that butter and onion mixture on them so that they don't stick together. We will use sour cream. We'll use that in the dough. We have our normal flour. I do run a fine sea salt and pepper, and what we'll use that for is when we cut our onion and run our butter for our potato mixture, we'll use a little salt and pepper in that to season it appropriately. With the dough, it'll be an egg, flour, and sour cream mixture. Like I said, it's going to be insanely sticky, but it turns out pretty good. Now the key thing that we have, I know they make contraptions and everything else for making the pierogis, but two things that are most important are our pierogi makers themselves. So this one here, a little bit easier to cut through. This one here was a homemade one. I believe my father made this, his metalworking skills in play, but these are about the right size. If you get the dough rolled out, we'll go over that and what we need to do with that in particular. Okay, so moving right along, we have our potatoes chopped and we're bringing them to a boil, so that's pretty straightforward. With potatoes, just make sure that they're cut in nice little cubes. If we look at our onion, the amount of onion you use is really up to you. There's no right or wrong way for this. What type of onion? The preference is yellow, Spanish, or Vidalia. I find those come out the best. I'm going to do 2 sticks of butter. I don't. If you say, "Oh, that's a lot of butter," well, put it this way. No one's going for a health award here. I do use, we bring them in a pan. If we want to talk about nostalgia, this is my grandmother's Griswold cast iron pan, so not that matters, you can use anything. But we're gonna go get this heated up. We'll melt the 2 sticks of butter. We'll mix in the onion. We'll caramelize it. We'll add in a tablespoon of salt and tablespoon of pepper. Yes, that is all subjective. You can use as much as or as little as you want. I tend to get yelled at because I like a lot of pepper. Quote from my grandmother, you gotta have pepper. That's where you get the flavor at. On to the next step. All right, so for the next part here, we have our Cooper Sharp. We had it cut into chunks. This stuff melts up pretty easily, so I don't have to grate it. And to be quite honest, it's harder to grate than it is to cut. We also have our grated pepper jack here. As you'll see, I'll include a time lapse of the onion, but our onion's now caramelized. We got our pepper, salt, and butter. That will go into the potato mix. All right, so we have our filling done. I used about half of the sharp cheddar. Probably could have got away with one block, but whatever. We used the whole block of pepper jack with it. So what I do with these is now that these are mixed together, you'll still see chunks of cheese in it. That's just about normal, and they'll melt in whenever they're put into the pierogi. I'll put this out on the porch. It's about a 30-degree day. We'll let them cool. I find that the cool potato filling is easier to work with. For the next part, we'll move on to the dough for the actual shell. All right, so dough portion of this. What we're gonna do, we're gonna use a 3-to-2 ratio, 3 cups of flour to 2 large eggs. We're gonna do 2 dollops of sour cream. What the hell's a dollop? Well, it's just a general term of measurement. We'll mix that in. We do have milk. We'll mix this until we have a nice medium density dough ball. And from there, we'll start the rollout. One of the things is this is going to be insanely sticky. This is by far my least favorite part of this, but yeah, we'll go through this. Taking a look at the dough, this here will get us about 3 dozen, maybe a little bit more, depends on what we do. So the dough is medium firmness. If you get it too wet, add a little more flour till it's right, and you want to make sure that you don't have any harder pieces within the dough. Using a mixer doesn't work the same. The dough becomes too elastic almost. You want the dough to be a little bit harder, so just keep that in note. Yes, it takes a while to do, but you know, it comes out a lot better. So next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna roll out the dough, and then we're gonna start filling and cutting pierogis. All right, so we're gonna roll out the dough here. I've got a couple passes through it. The goal with the dough that we did, the 3, 2, and then our ratios, is to get 3 dozen out of this. The one key thing is that I'll never roll the dough out more than twice. So I had 2 parts to what I made. This is the second part. We'll roll this out. This Tupperware mat comes in really handy because I try to get to the same size as what's on the mat. It kind of gives me the right thickness of it. I will flip it a couple times, a little bit of flour on it. This is about 16 inches round, well, maybe bigger than that, but if we get this rolled out, this will get us about another dozen, and then combining the 2 leftover pieces back together will get us another dozen, and from there that dough goes in the garbage. So you can do whatever you want with it, feed it to birds, cook it, fry it up, but we don't use it. It's too stiff at that point. One of the things you can do is you just got to make sure that you can barely see light through it. That's another good indicator. If you go thinner than that, it's going to be really hard to work with. All right, so we're to the part where, yeah, I'm skipping ahead. If you've seen this part first, I've rolled out the dough. We've used our pierogi cutters to make about a dozen here. I've let the filling out on the porch. It's now chilled down a little bit, and you can see that the consistency is a lot better with it. It's not as runny when it's still molten hot. So what I'll do with these is I don't roll the dough super thin. I actually roll it a little bit thick and then spread the dough by hand. I do this because I like to be able to get a thicker pierogi, and they're a little bit easier after you've put them together to get the ends to crimp. So as you can see here, because I have more dough on the end and I've worked it by hand, it's not as dry. So I'll pinch this off here. Don't laugh. I know we're laughing. I said pinch off. And there we have it, our first pierogi. Do the same thing over and over again. Stretch this out. Take our big spoonful. It's usually about a full-size tablespoon that I try to get into these. Sometimes I struggle with them. The thing that you got to watch is the more potato you get on the edge of your fingers and into the edge here, the more that these don't really want to close up. And these are the ones that will typically come out when you're boiling them, and they go right in your mouth as you're making pierogies. So this one here, not too bad. It's good to have a towel and sometimes have water so that you can pinch this, or a little bit of creamer or milk to get the edges to seal. And just do it just like that. Edges there. See my under edge. All right, so a little bit of time's gone by. We got our pierogies done here. We did about 5 dozen. We did 2 batches of dough. To be quite honest, we kind of petered out on this one, but 5 dozen, not too bad. We got our water going, we're boiling. As they float to the top, we'll pull them out. And then what we do is we have a lot of butter and onion. We'll throw each dozen in a bag after they cool down a little bit. Throw the butter and onion in, mix them up, throw them outside to freeze. So it's kind of the whole process. I'm gonna post this, and if there's questions, feel free to ask in the comments below.